be in the top left-hand corner.
Okay, so it's recording now?
Yeah, you see 3 seconds, 4 seconds. You see that in the top right-hand corner of the screen.
I see at the top where it says Dhammarato is recording the call.
Okay.
Okay. So, right, so anyway, my first question was, in your mind, what level of immersion is required for the session to count as jhana?
The first jhana requires factors.
Yes.
5 factors. And when you have those 5 factors put together, that determines first jhana.
Is it whether you have those 5 factors in any degree whatsoever?
These 5 factors are to be developed, and that they are there at whatever level they are there. And as you continue to practice, each of these factors more or less will be developed. But the first factor has got no development to it. Once you see the hindrances and throw the hindrances out, so long as you're keeping those hindrances out of the mind, that's a very, very good definition of first jhana.
Okay.
However, it has additional factors to it. One is the factor of rapture, which you don't even know what that word means. And the Pali word is piti, and you don't even know what that word means, so we'll have to talk about it. And sukha, the Pali word for pleasure. So the jhana factors are let us boil it down to success and satisfaction. And that the satisfaction is so good that you really want to maintain this state. And so you put the mind on guard so that you can stay in this state. This has nothing to do, by the way, with attainment. Attainment is some magical thing that some Westerners are starting to dream about instead of practicing correctly. There is nothing to attain. In fact, that's the whole point of this, is stop wanting to attain anything. And be happy with the way things are. Isn't the word attain like the word grasp and cling, only now we're clinging to a super-duper self.
Yeah, it could be taken that way for sure.
Labels. Yeah, huh? Pardon?
Oh, I was just agreeing that it could be taken that way for sure. So...
Can you give me any other way to take it?
Well, you could kind of think of it in a roundabout way that what you're attaining is the skill of letting go.
Okay, but then wouldn't you admit then that part of the letting go would be also letting go of calling it attainment and just let go?
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be a whole lot simpler, wouldn't it?
Yeah, actually it is. That's not like step 2. That is actually step 0. Just you don't have to attain anything. That is so strange about Western Buddhism, and I'm seeing that more and more. The more I get involved with Western Buddhism, the more I see how that it's clock oriented.
Right.
That tick I do, talk I get. Tick I do, talk I get.
Yeah, which is kind of missing the whole point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Stop winding the clock.
Right. Well, so the reason I thought of that question in the first place, it's not even what I originally meant to ask, but shortly before I called you, I was meditating, and I was practicing feeling the breath throughout the body and just trying to enjoy that as much as I possibly could, and it fit the description.
Enjoying it as much as you possibly could. What am I going to do with that one? Could you have said, I was enjoying and wow, and left it at that? What's all of this struggle about?
Yeah, that's a pretty good point.
Well, that's my job, I see, is to listen to students carefully. And when I repeat back, many of them do not like what I'm saying, when in fact I'm just repeating what they just said.
Yeah. But on the other hand, there did seem to be a volitional aspect to it, because when I didn't have the intention to enjoy it, the breath was just there and it was just the breath. But when I did have the intention to enjoy it, it actually became very pleasant, and it was like the breath was massaging the body, and you know, it
That's a
motivated
mental
me to
image
want to
or a
stay with that
concept that you
experience.
can use. That the breath massages the body is a metaphor or a concept that is very useful
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
give yourself a sense of well being.
Mm-hmm.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. In that regard, this is not the kind of intention that leads to suffering, because of the fact that the intention doesn't expect to get the results that are intended. But here it's immediate, it's intended, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually using the actual, real philosophical as well as physical cause effect. This causes that right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that this, and then 2 years later, or maybe after somebody dies, that happens. Don't get to that. No, it's got to be immediate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
and
that's
another.
good intention, and it is a kind of volition, and it is wholesome because it leads immediately to results.
Mm-hmm.
But most students are putting in a wrong effort, in the sense that they're trying and struggling really hard without experiencing the joy. And then they also have the expectations that, oh, I'm going to get the joy later. I struggle now and joy later.
Right. And another big problem with that is the expectation of the joy is a concept that doesn't actually match with anything that you actually end up experiencing. It's just something that you've built up in your own mind.
A concept,
Yeah.
precisely. So people wind up chasing concepts.
Which inevitably leads to disappointment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of effort ripens in clinging to things that are not attainable.
Yeah, and I've also had a little bit of experience with that. I've learned the hard way that it doesn't work. But I've learned that it doesn't work. And now I know how not to do that. So that's good.
Excellent. Well, see, this is the progress. You're waking up to the fact that you can be successful at the practice of the Buddha. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of students, they still are not sure whether they can do it or not, and so they need crutches and help and assistance from teachers, or concepts like rebirth. Well, if I can't do it this time, at least I can get ready for next time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm not all
postponing the
about that.
practice. Yeah. I'm
I
so
want it now.
disappointed to see that. Exactly. You're a Dhamma dude. You want it now, right?
Yeah. Well, and people talk down on immediate gratification, but it's one thing if you can actually have it now.
Okay, but we need to inspect or dissect that word gratification, because normally it's meaning getting what I want, that I've been wanting for a long time. And so there's this pent up hostility for non performance. And so I'm beginning to get really demanding right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the quality of immediate gratification, is here it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that answers my first question that came to mind right before I called you. But the reason that I called you in the first place was that I'll be going on my first retreat here in a few months. It's going to be a Goenka retreat, which I've never done before. So I was wondering if you had any insider tips that could make that, I don't know, any kind of insider tips whatsoever.
Where is the retreat going to be held?
Georgia.
Okay. If you were going to go to the California retreat, I would immediately give you the advice to go look to up two of my friends who live there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know any of the people who run the Goenka retreat in Georgia. Is there actually a retreat center, or are these people coming from the outside to hold a retreat in a rented building?
I didn't know that second thing was a thing. It is a center.
It is a center.
Yes.
Great. So one of the side things to do is to make sure that you become good friends with the people who are there, the ones who live on site. Okay. The second thing that I would suggest that you do, and I'll tell you why in a moment, is to follow their instructions carefully. To listen to what they do, and if they're playing Goenka tapes, especially listen carefully to what Goenka is saying. Because if you only half listen, you'll think he's telling you things that are different than what I tell you. But if you listen very closely, you'll see that, oh, what Dhammarato teaches is just something that is kind of added to. It's like Goenka will deliver a cake, but Dhammarato will frost it for you.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so in that regard, then, follow their instructions and listen carefully. I stayed with Goenka for almost 3 years.
Okay.
And so I know the method.
Right.
And when I'm teaching a retreat, I use more of the method. I don't do so hardcore of scanning, but that scanning method, that scanning technique is extraordinarily valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be what I would say. And then an asterisk behind that, or in parentheses, is that point is, and if you practice what they're saying correctly, you can also do that within the context of the conversations that you and I have had together, because I've just given you more detail than what they're teaching. More context, more detail, and all of that. So you can slide what you've been listening to here on Skype into that to see that it's really the same thing, rather than getting confused. Oh, you're teaching this and I heard that.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of students get confused again.
Right. Right.
So excellent. I congratulate you.
Thank you. Yeah,
so
the reason I ask you is
retreats are
because
really excellent Buddhist boot camps.
What'd you say?
I said Goenka retreats are really, really excellent Buddhist boot camps.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's kind of what I hear. I hear a lot of different things about them, but I've never been to one. So I thought I'd ask somebody who's actually been there himself and, like you said, actually practicing the traditions. So.
Right. Okay. Well, I've done well more than a dozen, but at those times, even I wasn't keeping count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I followed him around. Many of the retreats that I did were actually done in Hindi, because that's what Goenka in those days was. It wasn't even that much open to Westerners. They did do Western retreats. They did do them in English.
Right.
And he did go to Australia way back when. But mostly it was in Jaipur, Hyderabad, and at Igatpuri, which is where Dhammagiri is located. But that was in its infancy days before a lot of dormitories were built. Some people slept in tents.
Yeah. They must have really wanted it. Must have really cared about the practice.
Yeah, we did. So,
and it's nice that, well, I haven't practiced much body scanning, especially not in his style, but it's really nice that he actually offers free retreats. Those are the only free ones that I could find in North America.
Okay.
Especially one that's local.
Well, one thing, though, and this is what they will say, and I agree with them 100%, and I can tell you why, is that they consider anyone who's coming to do a retreat for the first time a new student. But by the end of the retreat, that student is now considered an old student, because he's just finished the retreat in time to make a donation on the way out the door. And that they are donation driven, and that they need that help. So Make sure that you understand that it's not actually free, but it's by donation. And that's the right way to do it, as opposed to, because now you're giving what you want to give and you're feeling generous and getting the benefit of knowing that you're helping them back because of the benefit that they gave you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's always a win-win situation. When they actually set a charge, like $1,000 or whatever, to do the 10-day retreat, then now they're lusting for your money and you don't want to give it to them. But you want to do the retreat instead, so you give them the money grudgingly, which means that they're breaking the precept of not taking money that's freely given.
Mm-hmm.
They're bartering for it. They're selling something. And this is what the big problem is. And so I heartily congratulate the continuing tradition of Goenka to follow this tradition correctly, because that will give you more of an appreciation of the value of the course that you're taking, as well as more appreciation of the open heart of Goenka, because he was world class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He did not know much Dhamma. He only knew about, let us say, 20% of the Dhamma, but what he knew, he put to work very well, very effective.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that I don't really like about charging for retreats is it bars people from who can't afford to pay it. So
right.
Yeah. So, and different people can pay different amounts, but if you're charging, say, $500 for a retreat and somebody's already struggling with their bills, well, they're just not going to go on the retreat.
Precisely so.
So,
however, those who can pay $500 without struggling say, there may be some people who really couldn't pay $500. Let me put in a little for them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you'll feel even better about it. That in fact, generosity is a practice and a skill to be developed, that the Dhamma centers rob that teaching from their students by charging money for it, showing the center itself to be money grubbing and part of the world, as a part of the Dhamma world.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm pretty hardcore on that.
Yeah, I actually saw the post on Reddit the other day. There was a pretty intense conversation regarding it.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
good. It's good to hear that that's intensely discussed in the West, because they really do need to hear that issue, as opposed to just making a bunch of assumptions. I'm glad to hear that someone's defending it, so that there actually is an argument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rather than a mouse make a peep and 40 dragons jump on him, which is possibly also the case.
Yeah. And one thing that I really appreciated about that conversation is, even with the dissenting opinions, those who disagreed with you and I, they were dissenting in a very respectful way. So there was no sense of belittling or anything like that. It was more just like, here's my opinion, here's why I think it, now it's your turn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of people try to justify Dhamma teachers' need to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and here's what you do with that. If someone is torn between eating and teaching Dhamma, it's not going to work out very well, because he's really going against emotions in the sense of eating, really gut level deep issues, versus the higher, the Dhamma.
Yeah.
And so the right thing for that guy to do is to go eat.
Mm-hmm.
Go get himself full. And when he feels well and sufficient and capable of teaching the high Dhamma nobly, then he can come and teach Dhamma. But until he wants to make money off of it, he's not teaching the noble Dhamma at all. He's just teaching another gimmick of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because he hasn't even got it for himself. He, in fact, is already announced by charging money that he's got to eat, and to him, eating is more important than Dhamma.
Right. Yeah.
He's got to get himself full of all the eating he wants and knows that he can get eaten, or sorry, not get eaten, but continue to eat, whether he teaches the Dhamma or not. Only then would it become noble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
So safety and security is actually a skill to be developed.
Yeah.
Because in fact, people say, oh, I need to eat. That means, oh, I don't feel secure. I'm out here teaching Dhamma that's supposed to teach people how to feel secure, and the teacher himself is insecure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, sorry about that. In fact, in the Korean tradition, that was a requirement. The requirement was that the teachers take care of the students. Even if the teacher had to work, then the Dhamma student could come and help him and be an apprentice at what he did, so that the student get both the Dhamma and apprentice in what, sword making or arrow shaft making or something not quite so dangerous. And this is the way that has been taught traditionally, even within the lay Sangha, that the lay teachers do not charge their students. And I can give you other examples of that. My favorite is Socrates, because he actually had some of his students living with him.
Right.
That not only did they not give him money and support him, he supported his students. And you say, oh, well, the wife of Socrates may have not appreciated that very well. And the answer is, oh, no. Those students were so grateful that she became kind of a queen, that they took care of her very well. She didn't have to cook they would cook for her.
Yeah.
And it became a real community. And that's well known and documented. Okay, so that kind of existence can be had. All the students need to do is to just gravitate around a teacher who is willing to support his students, and everything will go good from there.
Right.
And yet the teachers in America are not putting themselves up like that. Some of them are, and I've got to give them credit. And I'll give you a short list. Santikaro and Gil Fosdale are two of them that I know of that go for Dana only, as well as the Goenka. But in those two guys' places, they're trying to set up basically their own tradition. But Gil has been and continues to be associated with Spirit Rock. He's just decided to go Dana only, and I heartily congratulate him for that. To where Santikaro, he's part of the club. He's with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. And so I don't have anything to say except congratulations to the Dana only center that he's building.
Yeah, I was aware of Gil, but I didn't realize that he was doing Dhamma only.
Dana only, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I read on his website, and I knew him years ago in California. And in those days, he did not teach or did not charge for teaching, but he did long for a building.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one more question that actually just now came to mind. I recently got a job where I'll be in a position of authority, so I was wondering what you have to say about holding boundaries in the most compassionate possible way.
I'm sorry, give me that last again. You got a new dog, you say?
No, I got a new job.
Okay. Now it might start to make sense. I'm getting dog things in my mind. I got to throw those out and get job things into mind. Okay, go.
So the thing about this job is I'll be in a position of authority, so I was wondering what you had to say about holding boundaries in the most compassionate possible way, but in a way that's also effective.
For one thing, who sets the boundaries? Are these boundaries of decorum that's in normal society? Are these special boundaries that are created by the organization that you work? Or are these boundaries you're intending to set up?
Well, it's a mixture of both, so it would clear things up if I told you a little bit more about the job.
Pardon?
I said it would maybe clear things up if I actually told you a little bit more about the job. So I'm working at.
Well, you don't really have to, but you can answer which of those. In fact, is this something that you're intending to do on top of the social system that's already set up? Are
Yes.
you intending to add rules and regulations even more than what the normal organization system has already set up? Most organizations really require the social system as the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go punching your employees and they don't go punching you. I mean, that kind of stuff, those kind of boundaries.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
arguing loudly, those kind of boundaries are already there. Now, the thing that's really funny is on Reddit and the internet, you actually have to physically set those boundaries because on the internet there don't seem to be any social boundaries anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And part of my job would be to hold some of the boundaries that you just mentioned, because the place that I work at is a state-run drug rehab for adult women who are there on court order. So a big part of my job is to make sure that
Okay.
they're relating to each other in a pro-social way to make sure fights don't break out and things like that.
Exactly. Okay, so now we've got a real context that the who sets the rules here is the judge.
Mm-hmm.
Here come the judge. So that's a good context to put it in.
Yeah.
So that allows you then to join them. That's your job to help them stay within the boundaries that the judge causes. Don't stand on the other side of the boundary as church lady telling them you can't cross my boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, you live with them. You become their best friend. You're the guy that if they're looking for a shoulder to cry on, your shoulder's already wet. Never mind. Come on, you too.
Okay.
In that regard, you're going to be the compassion and joy machine there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the boundaries have already been set up, and you don't have to manage those boundaries. You need to manage how to spread the joy that those people are lacking in their lives already. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to remember them or remind them too much about the boundaries. They know where they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you need to remind them of is the things that they don't have, and that is the compassion, the joy, the friendships. Recommend to the women when they get out to stay in touch, and recommend that they stay in touch with each other. Mm-hmm. That the friendships that they can develop in those places will do them good for years. This is exactly the model that AA uses. Mm-hmm. And it works.
Yeah.
So make sure that you help the women build bonds for themselves with each other that will help them maintain a good lifestyle after either one of them gets out first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing that I've noticed to be pretty effective in situations like this is just to try to bring a sense of humor to it, because I've worked similar jobs in the past, and a sense of humor is always well appreciated.
Yes, right. That third Brahma Vihara mudita. Yes, the sweetness.
Yep.
The next thing, which you probably already know, don't touch anybody.
Oh yeah, there's very severe rules against that.
I figured, but I thought I would just throw that little dagger in there because that's something that a good Buddhist boy would do too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there are very severe rules against that. Oh, which reminds me of another situation that comes up working there. Several of the girls who live there, as well as several who have left, I believe are romantically...
Start calling them ladies.
Ladies, okay. So
women and girls both has a negative connotation that the word lady has got a connotation of higher class.
Okay, fair enough. So several of the ladies who live there, as well as several of the ladies who left, I'm 99% sure are or have been romantically attracted to me, which is a very tricky situation to navigate because obviously I can't reciprocate, but
no, the question is whether or not you want to or not.
Do what?
The question is whether you want to reciprocate or not. That's the issue that needs to be addressed. When you come to the conclusion that anyone that you touch, no matter how much she's offering, is dukkha, and that both people are going to get hurt. When you come to fully understand and realize that, then you will naturally know what to do in that moment. So long as you're having to deal with, yeah, I would really like that, but it's dangerous, you got a problem that we need to talk about. But when you come to the point of, well, I like it, but I don't want it, now you're getting someplace. And in fact, that leads me right into a story.
Okay.
And this is a story that happened, and in fact, I understand it to be fairly well documented, that this is a story between Ajahn Chah and Ajahn Sumedo before he was an Ajahn, when he was still a younger monk. Back about 1980, 83, that era. And that they were at a Katen ceremony. And that's where the place where all of the girls come looking for husbands. Actually, the girls are drugged there by their mothers who are out actually looking for husbands for their daughters.
Yeah.
But they're all dolled up. And so, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Ajahn Chah says, what do you think about all of this? And Ajahn Chah, quick on the dollar, right into Paticca Samuppada, says, I like it, but I don't want it. Now that both is hilarious and an excellent teaching, especially for you now.
Yeah.
That you got to get yourself into a state of you do not want any of those girls. And after you get your mind straightened out like that, then rejecting them compassionately will be fairly easy to do. So long as you're wanting one of them and still trying to say no, you're torn apart inside. You're not noble.
Okay.
So get your mind clear like that. You do not want any of these girls. These girls are dangerous.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. And I've been trying to maintain that state of mind. What I've been wondering is how to go about that moment of rejection in a way that's least hurtful for them.
Start off with it because you know when it's coming. They will flirt and play with you. So you will flirt and play right back with them in a way that shows them that you're giving them a rejection. All right? And here's how you can do that. Is it, oh, I bet you say that to all the boys.
Okay.
This is the kind of way to do it. Okay? Begin to tease them about their affections for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way that lets them know that you can look, but you can't touch. And it would be better if you looked and stopped liking it so much, because then the liking goes to wanting, and they don't have that kind of control that you're developing through your meditation practice.
Okay.
Be able to see the liking and decide that just because you like it doesn't mean that you want it. That you can bring wisdom in and say, wait a minute, I like it, but this is dangerous. Don't want it. Don't want it. And you can manage that.
Because if there is some wanting there, then what'll end up happening is, even if I ultimately don't do anything with it, I'll end up sending mixed messages.
They'll see it. They'll see it. If there's any warning from you on it, they'll see that as a thread, and they'll pull on that thread until they unravel your shirt.
Okay. So the point is to handle what's going on inside first, and then the way that expresses itself outwardly will be automatic.
Will be a playful no.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
And even things like, oh, you're too good for me. You go find somebody that's as high class a lady as you like, as you deserve.
Okay.
That's many different ways to tease them. But the first thing is you've got to make sure that they cannot see that you want them back.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so those are several things that we've done. One is get your own feelings straightened out. The other one is make sure when you're setting the boundaries that the court requires that you're on their side of that boundary, not on the court side of that boundary.
What do you mean?
You're one of them.
As in, I'm there for their well-being. I'm looking out for them.
More so that you're as stuck with this court stuff as they are.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. The reason I'm bringing that up now is because I've actually had this job for a couple months, but I've been on night shift, but they're going to be putting me on day shift soon, so these situations are going to start coming up more and more.
Yes, but you already know these ladies.
I do, because I still see them for a couple hours every day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So now you can begin to share with them a more noble way of looking at things. So you're on this side of the court system. You may not agree with anything that they say, but you're as stuck with it as they are.
Mm-hmm.
But we can still be happy inside that boundary.
Okay, good. And to be able to share that by example.
Excellent. This has been a great talk. I've enjoyed this one.
Me too.
You got any other questions?
Can we talk about moving from the first jhana to the second, third, fourth, and so on?
Yes, but let's talk about that some other time when it actually becomes relevant. Once you gain first jhana, your job is to stay there, not try to move out of it, because that's the sweet spot where you can actually examine what's happening with the mind and the thoughts. When you're in second jhana, you got no thoughts.
So what is the use of second jhana?
At that point, just because it's there doesn't mean it's got any use and value. It's just something that happens. And it's something that you can train for. These are normal things.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why you're asking is because you've been bitten by the lust bug of jhana, because you read about it and now you want it too.
I do.
So in a way, you can see that this is just another source of suffering.
Okay, but so just to clarify, are you saying that the first jhana is actually the one where insight happens?
Yes, and so, no, I'm saying that the Buddha says that, and he says it in Sutta number 36 in the Majjhima Nikaya.
Number 36.
Mm-hmm. The first jhana is the path to enlightenment. Why? Because from that catbird seat, you can see what's going on. But in the higher jhanas, you're shutting stuff down rather than dealing with it.
Right. Gotcha. So it's kind of like bypassing it.
In that way, then when the guy comes back out of jhana, he's back in ordinary world and didn't like it so much, so he's going to sit back down and do jhana again. Those are jhana dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Burma's got quite a few, not so many in the West that I know of, but that was one of the things that I could see with Bodhidharma, because he's got a history of spending 9 years in a cave.
Yeah.
Because he was disgusted with the king. During that 9 years, let's hope that he could deal with disgust instead of being disgusted at the king. He should have been disgusted with his disgust.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But those are just stories and ways of looking at things. Who knows what happened back then? So please, people who hear me say that, don't write and say you're trashing Bodhidharma. But rather making the point that it's not the jhanas, and the Buddha knew that, and he practiced the jhanas and gave them up before he became enlightened. Mm-hmm. But he did reflect upon, oh no, but there's this sweet spot, this in-between place, mm-hmm. this middle ground, this between the jhanas and the sweet, wonderful feelings and sensations that they get out of that, and the rest of the world, and all the suffering and misery that it gets, including trying to get things like doing self-flagellation in order to burn off old karma. where in fact self-flagellation just creates new bad karma. It doesn't burn off any old stuff at all.
It does, and I have lots of personal experience with that to say that you're right. It's a hard habit to break.
So you could say it like this then, that the first jhana is that sweet spot, that middle part of the middle path, where we actually can, as it being on watch, to maintain that position, because we get very jealous of it. We like it very much. Being in first jhana, nice stuff. Free from the hindrances, being able to manage and control the mind, being in a state of very, very satisfied happiness. That's the state we want to maintain. So we want to keep at bay any of the thoughts that are going to drag us out of that state.
Such as, it's not good enough, how do I keep this going, etc., etc., etc.
Which is always about the past, generally.
Yep.
What went wrong and what needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what actually keeps it going is just remembering that I'm doing this for fun.
Yeah, exactly. So the trick then is to remember to keep those kind of thoughts out of the mind and to keep only wholesome, happy thoughts in the mind. I can do this, that this is really good stuff, that I really like understanding dukkha so I don't get stuck in it. I really understand that when I'm stuck in dukkha that I'm the one who's doing it, that this is all an internal process and I can fix it. I can come out of this suffering. Yippee-ki-yo-ki-yay. We can do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can start to practice also that winner's attitude with these ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And beware that even more of them are going to fall in love with you even deeper, and that's okay. Find them a way to help them divert this love into helping each other. In fact, you might even want to go so far as to start a jilted list.
A what list?
A jilted list. All the women, all the ladies get together and bemoan with each other that they got jilted by you. You got it. Yeah, right. You understand what I'm getting at, okay?
Yeah.
Make it into a joke because otherwise they're going to fume and pout and suffer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of these ladies really are entrenched deeply in their own suffering.
So lighten up. And so that's your best job. That's the job that you need to perform while you're there, is to get light and stay light and teach them how to be light. Lightweight, not suffering. Be on their side of the boundaries. Mm-hmm. So that you can, whenever they complain about the rules or whatever like that, you say, I wish I could change that rule.
Yeah. And I've learned a lot of that from example, because in similar jobs in the past, among all my coworkers, the ones who were best at the job were the ones with the best sense of humor. Every single time.
Well, this is the way to go. Enjoy.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see you later.
All right, I'll see you later. Thanks for the talk.
Tell me all about it. I'd like to hear how it goes.
What, the retreat or?
Both.
Okay, gotcha. Will do. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.